Hello! Here we are again to discover the fascinating Japanese history of costume during the Sengoku period, when the traditional dress was born. And I will not lie to you, it's all about samurai. Not because they were the only one around, but because of this very particular time in history. The emperor and his court had lost all real power, detaining only a symbol of royalty, while for centuries past, who really governed the country was the shogun and his bakufu, his military government. But in the late Muromachi era, they also lost their real power. It looks like a trend, doesn't it? So a lot of the warrior lords, the powerful daimyo, started to fight for control. That is why the Sengoku period has been named like that. It means the warring states period. And that is why we will look at samurai, who also are the main characters of the fabulous movie Kagemusha. By my favorite director Akira Kurosawa and the amazing designer Seiichiro Hakukazawa. What is that sets samurai apart from the rest of the population? Because they wanted to be recognized. Remember, they were in power. One main aspect were the swords. Swords, those ones. A warrior, to be a warrior, needs weapons. And this very clear divide in society was made even clearer later on when a law was created that forbade farmers to carry any swords themselves. Later on, we will see more details about these very famous blades. The other very visible aspect that distinguished a samurai was, of course, his hairstyle. I'm sure you have noticed that they had the top of their head shaved. Long hair had always been a thing, and usually they were tied on the back of the head in a top knot. We see, for example, Lord Nobunaga wearing this earlier style, where the top knot stands up and the head is not shaved. So why did the samurai decide to shave it at the end? Some mischievous person suggested that this was because they wanted to hide their balding heads. That would have been extremely well done, but I'm not so sure that's the main reason. The fact was that in a very hot, humid climate like Japan, to have a shaved head was very practical when wearing a helmet. We can also observe that the Kagemusha, when he has been recognized as a double, lets his hair grow back because he's not a samurai anymore. But it's quite messy, as we see all the other peasants and spies wear it. Not the smooth, shiny style Nobunaga is sporting. So remember, swords and shaved head. If you meet somebody like that on the street, just go the other way. The first scene of the movie, which is so powerful in its simplicity already, shows us the powerful daimyo Shingen, lord of the Takeda clan, and his brother Nobukado, who are looking at the Kagemusha. We never discover his name, who might be a possible double for Shingen. That he should pose as Lord Takeda is made quite clear that he's dressed the same as him, and also as Nobukado, who also sometimes plays Shingen. We go straight to the point to what high-class samurai wore, the Hitatara, which is what the high-ranking warrior wore on formal or semi-formal occasion. We can see the top having the classical cut of robe with the wide square sleeves. At the bottom, the hakama was worn, pleated trousers that were tied by 4 straps at the waist. The number of pleats indicated the virtues of the samurai, while how you tied the knots indicated the occasion. A detail typical of the Hitatara are the cords that we see at the hem of the sleeves and the trousers, that were used to gather the fabric for practical use, as we can see also in a scene of the movie while they're riding. Both the trousers and the coat have wide side openings that made it possible to look at the wonderful kosode, usually of contrasting colors, worn underneath. Kosode is a form of early kimono. We've seen it has short, rounded sleeves with small wrist openings. Of course, underneath all, men also wore underwear, the fundoshi, a loincloth, and a juban shitagi, a white shirt that we can glimpse at the collar. It is quite an impressive outfit, but it is only during the late Muromachi period and Sengoku era that it became worn by the higher class. It was born as common wear, and it was chosen by samurai and upgraded for its practicality. Even aristocrats started to wear it as informal wear, influenced by the success of the samurai. We can see throughout the movie that all the main samurai characters wear it almost constantly. Usually top and bottom were of the same fabric, which were rich in color and pattern, contrasting with the kozode underneath. To complete the look, the man wore a sensu, a folding fan, a Japanese invention. Can you believe that? It's such a crucial part of some European costumes nowadays. The sensu was at the beginning used in court and became then one of the main accessories of samurai, who even used it to signal orders during the battle. Of course, a samurai would never show himself without a weapon, as we've said. There are so many swords, it's like opening a Pandora box when you start looking at it. So let's just say that samurai would always wear at least a short sword tucked into the hakama, because that was their way of life, to be always ready for battle. There are so many names and types of swords depending on time and trends. We see later in the movie, during the not play, that all the samurai wear a little black hat, called ori eboshi or samurai eboshi. Male headwear in this time was usually made of thin material and could vary in size quite a lot, depending on occasion and on the rank or position of the wearer. Samurai preferred the ori eboshi because it could be folded and worn under a helmet. As always, the very practical types. When at home and in very informal occasion, men could also wear just a simple kozode with simple hakama, as we can see many times during the movie. It immediately gives us a more casual feel, and we also see that the lower class are wearing it throughout. But of course, samurais had nicer fabrics. Don't you like all these gorgeous patterns and colors? Probably in our heads, at least it was so in mine, all samurai are grand lords. But there was a hierarchy. Japanese loved a good hierarchy. So they didn't all run around in beautiful hitatara. And we see another outfit worn by the lower class rank samurai, the kamishimo. That was also composed by a coat and trousers over a kozode. We find again the hakama, but on top the katagino, a sleeveless coat, always tucked in, that didn't have any side stitching and had very wide sleeves. Later on they became so big that they had even to be stiffened by paper. But during this time they were still quite restrained. The fabric was usually not as luxurious as that of the hitatara. Being a sort of uniform, the kamishimo was usually made of hemp and linen, and could also have the crest of the family we were serving at the front and the back of the katagino itself. Also in this case, a short sword would have been always carried. The only peak in the movie we have of court fashion is when Lord Nobunaga meets Lord Tokugawa. The latter is wearing a suigan sugata, which was originally a court outfit. We can see the usual kozode being worn, this time a white one, and an overcoat called suigan. Also an extra layer made of hemp to get rid of sweat could have been worn underneath, but we will never know if Tokugawa was wearing one. The suikan's shape is quite different from what we've seen till now. The sleeves are slashed at the shoulders and the front closes so to create a round neck. Underneath, some very specific trousers called kutsubakama or suikan bakama were worn. A bit puffy on the ankles. The silhouette of this look, with some variation, would have been what they would have worn at court. What would have given away who we actually had in front of us was the hat, if not the hairstyle. Tokugawa is wearing the ori eboshi, we've seen it before, while a courtier would probably have worn a tate eboshi, which is a higher form of hat. But I know you're all waiting to see a samurai in his full glory, wearing an armor. A very impressive scene in Kagemusha is a full rollover, hundreds of samurais. They lay about, waiting, while a messenger runs through them. We follow him till he reaches the room where all the generals are attending shingen. Costume-wise, it's an impressive scene. First, for the sheer quantity of armors seen in this scene. Secondly, also for the amazing opportunity to see all the high-ranking samurai in different stages of readiness for battle. We can almost figure out step by step the donning of a samurai armor. Should we try together? And as usual, please forgive my pronunciation in any language, probably even Italian. I'm really not the best. First thing first, like with the Hitatara, they needed underwear. So the fundoshi would have been worn and a juban shitagi, tied with a small obi, a belt, followed by a short version of hakama called kobakama. To cover the lower leg, Kian gaiters would have been worn and tabi socks, of course. Now down to proper business. Shin guards called suneate, made of different plates, were put on. Over them, tight guards called haidatate. They looked like a split skirt. On the arms, yugagate gloves were put on, followed by an arm harness and armpit protectors. Finally, the main part of the armor, the do, were worn. And of course, shoulder pads. To cover the exposed lower belly, a belt called uvaobi was added, which was also used to carry weapons. This leaves still the groin exposed. And who wants that? So akusatsuri, a collapsible set of plates, were worn. You have to know that during the Sengoku period, there was a lot of international trades happening, including with Europe. That is how Japan discovered the first arquebus. That influenced the round shape of the do, made that way to deflect bullets, and also an European-inspired helmet called Sujikabuto, which we've seen worn by all the soldiers in Kagemusha. If you look at this stage though, we see that the lower face and the neck are still quite exposed. Therefore, a mask with a scaled sort of collar was worn, a menpo. The Kagemusha shows us the full armor, wearing also a jimbaori, a sleeveless jacket worn by high-ranking samurai, depicting the crest of his family. Distinguishing one's enemy from an ally was quite important, as was to recognize your commander. That is why color and decorations were added to the armors. See the flag worn by the soldiers on the back and the huge ornaments on the helmets of the generals, which were easy to exchange with a more anonymous one if you wanted to leave the battlefield unnoticed. Of course, I haven't forgotten the swords. If you are passionate about samurai history, you know that they always carried two. This pairing was called daisho. It was exclusively allowed to members of the samurai class. Before the Sengoku period, the sword, attached through complicated cording, was the tachi. Descendant of the tachi and ancestor of the very famous katana was the uji katana, worn with its edge facing upwards in the obi. The short sword could be a wakizashi, but trends and preference may vary in this very fast evolving time. Putting on an armor has never been in any place or time a very simple affair. An armor has to be functional, but also protect the wearer as much as possible. These guys, though, look fierce. Now let's talk about two unconventional samurai. Yes, they existed. The first is Nobunaga. He stands out from the other samurai because he wears some kind of exotic clothing most of the times. He was very passionate about foreign costumes, and he wore very often European clothes. He even dons a European helmet and drinks wine. That is why he was a supporter of the Jesuits, who brought him all these interesting things. Can you spot the papal hat? The second weirdo we can spot is Uesugi Kenshin, another powerful daimyo. He was a fervent Buddhist, but still a samurai. He is not dressed in a hitatara, but in a simple black gozode, and on top he wears a kesa. This is a cloth worn by Buddhist monks and can have various shapes. It is usually made of different stripes of different fabrics, to remind that originally it was the only thing that monks could wear, scraps stitched together. Not the case of this guy, who even wears a kanmuri, a headpiece that was usually worn by courtiers. He was quite popular and feared, I assure you. Of course, when we talk about samurai, we don't only mean men. Women were samurai as well. They were born, raised, and married into samurai families. But even more importantly, they shared their way of life. I must say, it's not a very easy time for us girls. In this very manly and warrior-like time, women had less and less rights, especially if we look at previous centuries. Despite that, the rise of the warrior class permitted an interchange with the culture of the aristocracy. That was especially true for women who were raised the same as a court lady. And the court ladies, they looked for fashion inspirations. The first time we see some women in the movie is when we meet the nurse that looks after Shingen's heir. Later on, we also meet his concubines and his maids. We can immediately spot the difference of rank between the ladies and the maids. The first wear more intricate and layered outfits. We can see that they all wear the kozode, our favorite piece by now. But the ladies, of course, wear more than one, with contrasting colors and patterns. You have to know that till then, actually, women wore hakama as well, like Shinto maidens still do today. But then the kozode became acceptable as an outerwear as it grew longer. It just posed a new problem: how to make it keep closed and all in place when the hakama was not there anymore. So that is the first time we see the obi. Of course, it's much smaller than the one that we have in mind. We can see both ladies wear a bonus kozode, one like a coat, the second one draped and folded around the waist. These were two ways of wear the uchikake, a sort of kozode coat with a padded hem to keep its shape. As we've seen with men, patterns and colors were a must. We don't have the amazing and bold designs of one subject of modern kimonos, but gold leaf and embroidery made these clothes beautiful as well. What makes also this lovely woman unique is their makeup. As many women in the past, samurai and noble ladies wanted a white, clear skin. That is why lips needed to pop out and some color was added to them. Finally, the eyebrows were shaved off and redesigned in various styles. The hair was very long and usually just tied at the back in a very simple style. The complicated looks we have in mind come much later. I think when you look at these women, we can see that the layers of clothes show quite easily the different ranks of these women. The maids are not encumbered by dress. They only wear one kozode with a pretty pattern but simple and no makeup at all. They look pretty and neat, but also ready to work. The ladies, on the other hand, have a decadent look about them, with the uchikake always ready to drop down from the shoulders. The figure is hidden and they always look like flowers blooming from so many petals. With the peace reached in 1603, when Tokugawa finalized the unification of Japan, the samurai and their way of life became somewhat history. Something to remember and even worship, but from afar. Their style and armor was frozen in time. Their traditional clothes became a sign of wealth, even used by townsmen later on. And they were not an indication of being active warriors anymore. The Sengoku period, being a time of constant conflict and battles, was their moment to shine, even if their last. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fashion of one of the most popular periods of Japanese medieval history. What was your favorite outfit? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to see more. Ciao ciao!